Railroad tracks weave their way across nearly 140,000 miles of America's countryside, cities, and towns. Trains transport everything from passengers to the cars we drive to the food we eat. Responding to incidents involving the railroad can present certain challenges. Your safety is very important to us, so we'd like to share some techniques and information that will help reduce your exposure and help keep you safe on and around railroad property.
Trains operate every hour of every day. As an officer, there are certain safety considerations to be aware of whenever the line of duty brings you to railroad property. For everyone's safety, it's important for the railroad to know you are on their property and be able to pinpoint your exact location. When entering the property, immediately have your organization's dispatcher notify the appropriate railroad communication center.
BNSF Police, this is Paige.
Relay the nearest milepost number found on signs along the track and, if possible, the nearest posted street name. You will find that all railgrade crossings are to have signage with an emergency contact number and a U.S. Department of Transportation crossing ID number. Providing the crossing ID or DOT number to the Railroad Communication Center will allow them to determine the exact crossing location. Information such as street name, a milepost number, and the number of tracks at the crossing may also be provided. Once notified, the Railroad Communication Center will immediately advise train crews of your presence. However, ultimately, you are responsible for remaining clear of railroad tracks and equipment. Another safety consideration to keep in mind is to be aware of the other people and equipment on site. Officers may encounter not only suspects but other responding law enforcement officers. These could include railroad special agents who may be dressed in civilian clothes. Remember that moving trains and other equipment could be traveling on any track in any direction at any time. Officers pursuing suspects may observe their actions by looking across the tracks or looking under rail cars, but never crawl under rail cars. Do not cross between two cars unless they are at least 50 feet apart. Officers crossing a single or end car must do so at least 25 feet away from the end of the equipment. If it's absolutely necessary to continue a pursuit and only after assuring a train is secure from movement, use the ladders, handrails, and platform located on each end of most rail cars. Searching and working around intermodal cars, commonly called well cars, can present safety challenges. These cars allow containers to be placed on top of one another, with the lower container sitting deep in a well. Due to height restrictions, the floor of these ride only inches above the rail. The flooring structure is not always a solid deck, but rather an open framework. Take great care when inspecting the well area. Passenger cars present additional concerns because of the electrical system required to operate onboard equipment, such as lighting, heating, and air conditioning systems. Diesel electric and fully electric locomotives carry significant electrical charges. Never put your hands into the locomotive's underside. Use extreme caution around fully electric locomotives that operate on a third rail or overhead catenary system. These systems are more prevalent in the northeastern United States, but can be found in other parts of the country, particularly commuter rail. Load securement devices such as chains, steel cables, and metal banding may be present on certain train cars. These devices could present a striking hazard if they loosen during travel. Loose clothing or a duty belt can be snagged, dragging officers into or underneath moving equipment. Another concern for law enforcement is driving in a rail yard or access roads paralleling tracks. Be aware that railway access roads are often narrow and can end abruptly. This can make it very difficult to change direction. Remember that locomotives and train cars extend further than the width of the tracks. To keep vehicles and the people inside them safe from moving equipment, keep at least 4 feet away from tracks when driving. When exiting your vehicle, be aware of any debris or equipment on the ground that may present a tripping hazard. Railroad rights-of-way are often elevated and covered with loose gravel, making careful footing very important. Responding officers should also look out for rail-related safety concerns. Watch for debris on rails, which can turn into a forceful projectile when struck by the wheels of a train. This can cause injury to anyone standing or walking nearby. When crossing the tracks, do so only at a right angle. Even though rails appear to be flat, in fact, they're slightly curved. Avoid stepping directly on them, especially in wet or icy conditions. Avoid stepping between rails in the vicinity of track switches, which may move unexpectedly. These are often operated remotely by train dispatchers or signal tower operators who are not in view of the switch. They only take 1 to 5 seconds to move and can easily pin and crush a foot. Open and trestled bridges are not designed for pedestrian traffic and should be avoided. These elevated structures can give a deceptive image of open space, but in fact give a person on foot no room to escape an approaching train. Remember, trains take time to stop, and with high-efficiency ribbon rail technology, the old clickety-clack sound is gone, so approaching trains can be quite stealthy. There may be cases of on-track emergency when it is necessary for responding officers to stop a moving train. This should be done first by contacting a railroad dispatcher. In cases where time does not allow this communication, manually flagging down the train may be necessary. First, give the train as much time and space to stop as possible by positioning yourself further down the track than the emergency site. Stand a safe distance away from the rail. Then, move a fusee or brightly colored object in front of yourself from side to side at a right angle to the track until the train engineer acknowledges your stop signal by sounding the locomotive's horn 2 times in succession. At night, use a flare or flashlight to signal the train crew. Remember when attempting to stop a train that speed affects stopping time, and a train may be moving much faster than it appears. Passenger trains typically travel at higher speeds than freight. Weight also factors into stopping distance. On average, a freight train is 4,000 times as heavy as an automobile. For example, a vehicle traveling at 55 miles per hour can stop in about 140 feet. A school bus going at the same speed will take about 230 feet to stop, and a tractor-trailer about 240 feet. Passenger trains going 55 miles per hour can take about 900 feet to stop, and depending on the weight of its load, a freight train may need 1 mile or more. Officers can connect with railroad personnel by phone at any time. However, there are also digital resources available for smartphones and tablets that may be helpful as well. Found in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store, the Rail Crossing Locator application offers detailed information from the Federal Railroad Administration's grade crossing databases. Users can locate highway rail grade crossings by crossing ID, address, or exploring the map. Access inventory records submitted by states and railroads, and view accident history. The First Responder Only AskRail app helps you quickly identify hazardous materials on train cars. It also provides details on isolation zones, hazmat placards, and emergency railroad contacts. And the mapping feature uses GPS technology to help identify nearby points of interest such as schools, hospitals, and fire stations.
Safety is our top priority, and we hope these techniques and information are helpful should your duty bring you to railroad property. We encourage you to reach out to us anytime by calling 1-800-832-5452. And remember, look, listen, and live.